Didn't
So
want to
you were having a drink or 9.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Got it.
Okay.
Got it.
All right. Set the stage.
Yeah, so he's like, "Hey, why don't you come out and go in our hot air balloon in the morning?" And at the time, I'm like, "That's a great idea. I'd love to do that because I've always wanted to go in a hot air balloon." So early the next morning at dawn, right? We're
Oh
in this
yeah.
parking lot,
It's probably
and then go
dark
ahead,
before.
Dave, and I can jump in whenever. But
Yeah, so we get
it,
there.
it's a way different experience than I thought it was going to be.
Tim's like, "We'll meet you. We'll meet you. What time?" I'm like, "The sunrise." So this was in August, I think. So it would have been like 6 o'clock. So they show up, which I was somewhat surprised with.
It was
Which
about
is
a half hour from where we were staying.
which
Yeah.
is 3 a.m. Pacific Standard,
Yeah.
by the way.
Well,
So,
And I
he had
think I
been
went to
in
bed
town
around
for a
3
minute.
a.m. that night. But
I'm sure you did, Bear.
hey everybody, welcome back to Set the Pipe. I am Sully, and of course we got CK, we've got Bear, and today we have a club director, not an usual guest of ours, right? He's not an Olympian. He wasn't an All-American. Wasn't a 3-time first team All-American.
Thank you. Appreciate
You're
that.
welcome. Or a national champion on the other side, Bear, right? But he does run a successful club. Bear has known him for some time, and he's got a great and unique story that I think everybody is really going to enjoy this. So, everybody, Renaissance Volleyball Club, welcome. Dave Neely, welcome, brother.
Right. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining.
Yeah,
to
thanks for
talk to you
joining us for
guys.
sure.
Glad to see
Yeah.
Bear
See you,
has that
Dave.
pirate hat on down there. Maybe you can get us
Got to
some
rep
wins
the
this
Pirates today.
year. There you
Got
go.
somebody on from Pittsburgh, my buddy from Pittsburgh. Yeah.
That's right.
That's it.
Been to a few Pirates games out there.
So let me go over Dave's experience real quick. So he played volleyball basically from middle school on, and went to college actually to run cross country and track. 2 of my girls actually D1 track athletes, so we can talk about that a little bit. Coached all levels, both guys and girls, middle school through varsity, and then dabbled a little bit in Division I volleyball at UConn. Coaches about 45 teams in his facility there at Renaissance in Pittsburgh. And, his philosophy has always been just attention to the process while making adjustments accordingly to create a more desired product. Some things that most volleyball people that I know around the country doesn't own a hot air balloon. Dave Neely does.
That's right.
Pretty impressive. The players that he's produced and the colleges that they've gone to is vast, but we're talking Penn State, Pitt, Duke, North Carolina, Florida State, Juniata, Ohio State, Ball State, and I can go on probably for another 5 minutes, but it's been thoroughly impressive. So today we have Dave Neely on the show, and I'm actually really excited about it because it's going to be totally different than what we've done before, and I think the conversation is going to be very, very good. So again, Dave, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Sully. Glad to be here. Caught some of your other interviews, other shows. Great stuff. There's a lot of things on there that made me think. Get some ideas for our club, for other things we're doing. So glad to listen to what you guys are doing. It's nice to have something in the volleyball world to stay tuned to.
So Dave, we've gone back. Sorry, we go back about, I don't know, 15, maybe 20 years now.
Yeah,
I think
about that.
we met in Pittsburgh for one of your, it's Phil O'Keefe's, one of our mutual friends, volleyball camps at Fox Chapel. Phil and I, we played professionally over in Europe together in France, and then was working one of his camps, and that's kind of how Dave and I became friends. Can you go into a little bit of that? How you got started with volleyball? And
Definitely. So yeah, we met at Phil's camp and then just got to know you a ton since. But as far as volleyball goes, there's a little pocket of men's volleyball, always has been in Western PA. So my older cousin started to play, I want to say in middle school. I saw it, Olympics and whatnot, and thought, that'd be a cool sport to try. I've played just about everything you can mention. So 7th grade came around and they had tryouts, tried out.
For high school or club?
For middle school. So
middle school. Okay.
Yeah. So I was playing back. That would have been 2000 or 98, 99, somewhere in there. So I never played club volleyball myself. There was a guys club volleyball, but honestly, I had no idea how to find it. I didn't know about it until I was well out of high school. I was at a school that we had a boys team. We were all right, but it wasn't like it was everybody's second sport was volleyball pretty much. But got the bug. It was before there was the libero rule back in old school scoring, all that. So unfortunately, wasn't around when there was a libero, so I was more of a D-spec. So we'd score points for 3 rotations, and then we'd get our butts whooped for 3 rotations.
That's what happens when Coley was, right? That's why we had to keep him in to set the pipe back there. We got to get him scoring somehow, right?
That's it. There you go. So, so got the bug there. I was cross country. Well, the cross country came in later in high school. One of my best friends, Sam Bear, became a sub 4-minute miler. His dad was also a sub 4-minute miler. So they were the second father-son duo in America and the third in the world to break 4 minutes a mile. That's who got me into running. So, junior year, I started cross country. We took, I want to say, 4th or 5th in the state, Pennsylvania. We only had 5 runners. Sam's dad was our coach, so we had no cushion. All of us had to execute, and we were a solid squad. So long story short, I ran in college mainly at a Division II school, Northwood University, which I was there for automotive marketing. Which is the only school in the world for automotive marketing.
I was going to ask. You don't hear that.
Right. So that's where I went, got into the car business right out of college, and decided to volunteer assist the boys team at my high school while I was working at Tom Henry Chevrolet. So did that, caught the bug coaching, and that's where I met Phil, who Bear and I have. That's how we was through Phil O'Keefe. So he hired me to coach the middle school team at Fox Chapel, and then I was with him for quite a while with Fox Chapel squad. We got to the state final a couple of times. Had a family, the big group with the Tublins. One of them went to Stanford. One of them went to Ohio State. Josh, who went to Ohio State, won 2 national championships at Ohio State. Dan played in national championship at Stanford. And then they had another younger brother, Andrew, who was also very good and took us to the state championship. That was all at Fox Chapel. From there, I got into the club game where we had Pittsburgh Volleyball Club. Coached there for a few years, and then started to get into the girls game. It was at Fox Chapel when I was like burnout from the car business. I told my grandma, who lived with me at the time, I'm like, I'm quitting. I'm just going to do volleyball. And she looked at me, she said, "You're never going to make any goddamn money at that volleyball."
Good old grandma.
So, right. So I did quit the car business, real career, and I started just doing odd jobs on the side. Like I was working with special needs individuals out in the community. I was helping out at our family's funeral home. We were flying hot air balloons. So just a whole slew of things to get by while I was trying to get my footing in volleyball. There were a couple seasons where I coached high school girls, high school guys, club girls, and club guys. And I remember the one year it was like every weekend from January 1st until, I want to say, mid-May, I had a tournament, whether it was, and I would alternate them as like boys one week, girls the next week. Once you got into school season for guys, we'd have tournaments or matches every weekend around the girls tournaments I was going to. So I definitely was grinding it out, and most of the time not making anything out of volleyball, just, pretty much paying to be there. But I learned the game. I've coached with a ton of great coaches. And I found a way to make a career out of it. So my grandma, not with us anymore, but I told her sister, who actually just passed, but her sister was like 101. And I saw her last year, and I said, "Hey, tell Gladys when you see her that the volleyball thing worked out."
Grandma
That's
Gladys.
awesome. Dave, listening to your story so far, and I can't wait to hear more, is what makes it so great is, you didn't play in college like we did and just fall like a different way. You fell in love with the sport differently, right? Like you were running track, you got into it, you started to coach, you were an assistant coach, you coached high school, you coached middle school, and you fell in love with the game. And what's cool about this show, and appreciate the comments early on about, us doing what we're doing, is we're trying to get stories like yours out, because volleyball isn't just Karch Karai and Misty and Carrie, right? Like, even though they are volleyball, right? But like, there's a lot going on behind the scenes scenes. I was at a junior tournament today watching 13s and 14-year-olds, and there's so much going on, and there's ways to make money. We had a lady on here the other day, a woman who was fantastic about what she does in helping recruiting, and she also coaches club, and she was an amazing player. But
Absolutely.
hearing your story and telling everyone what's going on out there, to, again, the culture of volleyball, the stories of volleyball, to fall in love with volleyball. I mean, if anyone knows Bear, then you know volleyball. So, then that's, stories that go along with Bear too. So sorry, Bear.
That's all good.
So yeah, Dave, so now all of a sudden you decide, you get to tell your grandmother's sister and that you made it. You made a business out of it. Tell us about that transition. So you're coaching, you're grinding, you want to do this, you fall in love with it. But at the end of the day, we all know, just like we have jobs, like you have to pay the bills, right? The mortgage comes, the gas needs to be filled up in the car, and you just can't go volunteer or make, $500 for a team. So how did you transition from the love of it to be able to still love it, but create a business and a lifestyle for you?
Sure. So one of the things was I just was doing it all the time. So anytime I could do it, I was coaching, volunteering, running a clinic, doing lessons, grinding it out with the other jobs I had on the side. And I did, like, the normal track, I guess, that I saw would be to make a living off of it was coaching high level volleyball Division I, and whatnot. So I tried that. I went to UConn as a volunteer assistant when Chris Grunwald got hired. Grunny played for Mason back in the day, was a pretty good outside down there. But I got connected with him, went up and grinded it out as a volunteer at UConn for a season. Enjoyed seeing that end of it, seeing the recruiting side on that end, and kind of the business side of having to book. We were in the AAC, so we had the most travel out of any conference in the country because we were all over the place. We played SMU, South Florida, Central Florida, Tulane. The closest one was Temple, which was still that was the only bus ride you could take. But we were all over the place, Cincinnati. So I got to see a lot of the country at that point just from spending that 1 year there. Got to learn under Chris and work with a great group of people. So once I did that, I came back and decided I wasn't sure that I wanted to do the whole grind it out, move all over the country, move around every year. Instead, I went back to the club. I knew we needed to run the club way more efficiently. It was sort of just, there was a website that was basically a Facebook page at the time. So I taught myself how to build a website. I took over the billing. I took over planning the tryouts signups, and the whole coding the sign up so that if they're trying out for a team, they don't have to read the age chart to figure out where they fit in. Rather, you type the date of birth, all that.
Making it efficient business model.
Exactly.
This is all Renaissance, correct, Dave? Or is this?
This is at Renaissance. Yes.
Renaissance,
So at this point, I came back from UConn, went to Renaissance, and I was coaching girls at Renaissance prior to me going there. So I came back. Really, anything that I had done was pretty basic prior to this. So I dove all the way in and just hammered out, hiring practices, uniforms, all that. So got into the thick of it, started to deal with, any of the parent issues, all that stuff. So kind of just jumped in with both feet. Took over the club in 2018. And from then we've just grown and grown. The game here is growing just like it is everywhere else. But
it's great to hear. It's great to hear.
Yeah, for sure. And I have some numbers just to show the growth. In 2016, there were 201 kids that signed up for tryouts. The same number in 2017, it dipped to 192 and 18. Then 19, it started to climb. We went to 291 in the following year, 466, 2021, 480, 22, 560, 23, 934. And then this year we were at 930. So
wow.
Well, double twice.
Right. And it's funny because go ahead. Sorry, Tim. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, how do you have a club like that, and how do you make it grow, and how do you keep it running like that?
So a lot of work and a lot of trust in your staff. So a lot of it, and a lot of club directors will tell you, if you haven't run a club fully, you're never going to be able to understand all the ins and outs because there's so many bends and corners and things that you don't have any clue you're going to deal with that you deal with. And so a lot of it was knowing that I could do all of it if I needed to. So if there was anything that needed to be done, I could jump in and do it. But trust to have good people on staff that you could give those roles to. So as I was able to do most of it for the first handful of years, and then I had a few sidekicks come in here and there. Finally, 2 years ago, there was another club director in the area who was a competitor that had run her own club, had run a competitors club prior. I finally got her to come over, and she's like the queen of operations. She kills it. So having her now and the volume that we have multiple locations. It's impossible for one of us to do. So luckily I have her. Last year I hired Tracy Plungus, who was West Virginia's associate head coach for the previous 5 years. Hired her as our training director in the gym. That way we had multiple people that could run the gym, and I kind of was able to direct all the avenues at that point without getting overstimulated one area and letting another area slack. So
was she with Reed at West
Yeah,
Virginia? Reed
yep,
Sunahara? Okay.
yep.
You know, he's at Hilo now.
Yes, he is. And
Yeah, he just took
I
the
just
Hilo
chatted
job.
with him via LinkedIn the other day.
No, no kidding.
So yeah, it is. I have a question for you. This is, as a parent, you see this blow up in a business, right? Like
Right.
you go to a tournament like today. When I went to one match, again, I chose to go to one match, not the 3 that were being played, but it was $20 a ticket for my wife and I, and then it was $20 to park it. If you paid it with really the only thing where you can park, you know how it is. So that's $60 to go watch one 14-year-old volleyball game. I'm okay paying it. I've seen the growth for years, but in your business model, because it is a business and it should be a business.
Mm-hmm.
What do you tell the parents in your club about that factor of it? Like, are they, I'm paying you this money to get my kid a scholarship. Are they paying you for the overall experience? And I'm curious from because I'm going to ask other club directors when we have them on here, because I know a few, and I think it's important. How do you handle that? As you're one of the bigger clubs in Pennsylvania, if not the biggest. You said you have 490 girls right now playing for you.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Somewhere in there. That's a big club, a lot of teams, a lot of aspirations. I'm sure it's not all 17s. You go down probably to the 12s and the whatever it is, but the goal for most kids paying all this kind of money is to try to get to that next level. So I asked you a bunch of questions. How do you handle it? And what's your guys' philosophy out there at Renaissance Volleyball Club?
For sure. So that's part of what I was going to go into. So I'm glad you asked it. So yes, club is expensive, but so are the tournaments that you have to pay for 6 months before you have practice. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
We're now having to enter tournaments without having any idea how many teams we have at each age. And those tournaments, a lot of them have refund dates that are before your tryouts for the younger kids, especially. So and they will not budge on them. So what we say is the one of the misconceptions is a lot of people think these clubs have these massive profit margins. Most clubs are running at like a 5% or lower profit margin. And one of the ways I was able to grow this that I didn't touch on during COVID, one of our facilities had somebody go in, like their GM went in and took the PPE money. Like he signed up for it and stole like $100,000. And so the gym wasn't able to run because they weren't able to have athletes in there, right? Because they were shut down for a couple months and they needed cash. So before that, we were just renting. Every season we'd work up an agreement. We're going to be in here this day, this day, this day. I went in and said, here, we'll pay you so much up front, this much every month, and we have full control of all 3 courts. So it's a bigger complex. There's 3 volleyball courts that are next to each other, hardwood, plenty of room. So I said, and that's where we had been for it's probably 20 years now. So they loved it because they were able to get some cash. They didn't have to deal with cleaning the courts anymore or booking the courts anymore. So we started booking the courts around our time, which gives us the extra funds to be able to go ahead and have money to put teams in these tournaments before we have a commitment or a down payment or your deposit. And that is what fueled the club to be able to grow. Like I was saying, most of these clubs are running at a 5% or less profit margin. And there's a ton of clubs in Pittsburgh that are pretty small that just rent court time. And it's hard to come by the court time. A lot of times now they're going into schools, they get pushed
It's
out
everywhere.
by a basketball team. Right. So that was our biggest thing, is that we got that long-term lease. And then last 2 years ago, I got another long-term lease north of the city it's a bigger one-court facility. So it allows us to have a north campus and a central campus in the city. And then we have a couple other places that we rent from. But those two places can provide us with income outside of travel volleyball. So pickleball, adult leagues, and whatnot, that allow us to have the ability to pay for better equipment, to pay for the teams, to pay for these expensive tournaments, especially at the national level, that you're paying for in July when your tryouts at the end of July, if that makes sense.
Yeah, which is another thing I don't like that they changed years ago, is like making the tryouts before high school, right after club's over. And you don't even, this is for girls we're talking. And then girls don't even start till November, right after their high school season. And like they already tried out in July, and anything could change. One of your best friends, anything could happen. Like, I don't know. I just think it's crazy. I do like the structure, though, of USA Volleyball and the way volleyball does it compared to hoops. I mean, hoops is a disaster. At least, you qualify, and there's Junior Olympics, and you go up a division, you go down a division, depends how you do each weekend. At least it's structured in that regards. But I think it's a little overboard. I know why they did it, but I still think it's a little crazy to do it that early. But
yeah, what I found out when I was running our club was the girls when they're in high school and they got postseason, they're trying to go to state, they're talking about what clubs are doing. They're recruiting other kids. So their focus wasn't on their high school. So I'm actually in the opposite camp on that. I love the fact that we got to have tryouts in July so they can focus on their high school, because I know how important high school was. And I just saw it getting really dirty between clubs, between players, between parents during high school season of what club they were going to go to. So where I was at was pretty toxic that way. So when the USAV is like, yo, you can have tryouts in July, that solved a ton of problems for me. I'm like, have a good time in high school. We'll see you when it's all over.
So that's both of those views. I'm glad you said it, because we're in an area where we're right next to OVR. So we're in the Keystone region, but we're right next to the Ohio Valley region. If we can technically choose which region we want, because we have a club director that lives, the operations, Laura Ziwi, she lives in a neighboring county to Ohio. So it's theoretically, we're in the gray zone. So we can choose which side we want to go on. And they were both completely different as far as their tryouts. Their tryouts were like, even right now, this summer, the tryout for OVR are 2 weeks earlier than KRVA. So you can be pulling the same kid in the club that has the earlier tryout, theoretically has the first chance to convince that kid to go there.
Right.
So I think the summer is better, because we had the issue in the fall where the kids were playing their state championship after tryouts. So the tryout weekend was the weekend before. So we would have kids that were getting ready to play in the state final that would just come and watch tryouts, and that was their tryout, and you had to make the offers that week in order to get the kids.
Yeah, but let me ask you an honest question, and I love this talk, because it's not just we got to talk. So I'm going to keep arguing, because I love to argue.
Yeah, let's go.
Two things. One is, as a society, we have put too much of an onus on non-high school sports. The high school sports used to be so unique and so exciting for communities, for small towns. High school sports was a big deal. With what you both just said, you made high school seem like, who gives a shit? Let's worry about our club team. Let's practice in July so we don't have to talk about it through high school. High school should be something that these kids live for the rest of their lives. And club soccer did it 20 years ago, and they've ruined it ever since. Kids don't even play high school soccer anymore. They play club. And so I'm going to just go back to my argument.
Yeah.
So the other thing is if I'm playing I live in Aliso, so there's a school, Aliso Niguel, and San Clemente's close. Like, if I kind of know someone at San Clemente and we're playing 2 or 3 times a year and we become friends or whatever, and I know we can help each other on that club team, and this is my last year, I'm 18s, I want to play, like, I can't talk to her to go play on our team anymore because you've already tried out in July. And I might not even have known the girl, or someone transferred in because their dad got a new job and all of a sudden they can't play on your team. I don't know. I just think high school should be, when club is over in July, club should be over in July.
Well,
when you're done.
That's the point, though. That's the point, to have tryouts then.
No. When you're done playing, tryouts are the beginning of something. Tryouts aren't at the end. When you were done at Long Beach and you lost in the last game or whatever, did you guys try out a week later for next season? Did Ray Rattel bring you guys in for next season? No, he didn't.
Yeah, but
you were done. The season,
like you said,
the season was over.
No,
so when the season is
over,
over,
like Dave said, until you're a director and have to deal with every little nuance, right?
The other
that
thing
we're
was
talking about
in the fall
they
for
do
us,
enjoy their high schools.
Season's over.
If they would have put the fall tryout, if it would have matched the school season to where when the school season was over, you had tryouts, that would have been completely different for us. But those kids that were at state in the state finals, they weren't allowed to try out. So if you were
Dave, if you're watching girls, if you're watching 6, let's say 8 because 2 liberos are playing. Let's make it 10 because 2 girls are coming in a 6-2. You're telling me running a club that you're watching the best team in the state from the championship play, you know who those girls are? You wouldn't know if you wanted the girl on the left.
You do, but there's also teams. I'll take, for example, Tim knows of this school because I think a lot of kids have came out. North Allegheny, which is one of the bigger high schools in Pennsylvania. That's right next to me. So you get that school has 10 seniors. All 10 of those girls aren't playing, big roles on that team. So yeah, a lot of them are, but then these other kids get lost in the shuffle when it was in the fall to some extent. Now, the one thing that we do at our club that not everybody else does, we also have that early tryout because you have to in July, but we offer a second tryout.
Yeah, so did we.
And it's more so for, a lot of times it's for the 15s age group because those kids weren't aware of when club tryouts were or didn't. And so that helps. I don't know that there's a perfect solution, and I wish there was, because the one thing from a director standpoint, it's great because I don't have to run 2 full weeks of tryouts in a row to where you're like, because it was always, you had 12, 10s to 14s was the last week of October. And then 2 weeks down or a week down, and then 15s to 18s was the next weekend. So you're making offers, talking to parents, waiting for kids to commit basically for a month straight. I was at Tim's house at the end of that. Tim, I think I stayed with you at one of those points towards the end of that, and I was on the phone the entire time I was out there. And so I like it that it was split up for that, for the directors and the coaches, so that they get some downtime between, so they're able to give a good evaluation for both tryouts, if that makes sense.
I won't concede, but I'll let it go. I'll say that. I mean, listen, things change, and I understand why they did it, and you're making great points. And like at the end of the day, I don't have a daughter playing, so I don't have to worry about it. But I just think, when the season's over, they should just let it go and let them get ready for high school. And then when high school's over, you get ready for club.
Yeah, where we were at, the hard part was when they did the fall, right after their season, a lot of clubs were basically saying, you're going to try out for us. If you leave this gym and don't commit and go to another tryout, you're not going to get an offer. That's not good to me. So what I did, because I'm a good guy, right? If there was 18s tryouts on Monday, I would have 18s tryouts on a Tuesday. Because I'm like, sorry, I'm going to give these other kids a chance because I know I can train. I know I can train and build these kids up and make them better. That was my philosophy. I was just kind of the good Samaritan, but it was brutal in terms of what the clubs would do to these kids.
Yeah, the nice thing about the Keystone region is Ohio Valley's different. Keystone gives us a lot of issues. I like Ohio Valley as a whole better. The one thing that during our tryouts, you can't offer until Wednesday. So the tryouts open on a Friday. You can't offer until 7 o'clock on Wednesday. So,
nice.
Now that sounds great until
I'm starting to think about it
until 7 o'clock on Wednesday comes, and you get 7,000 calls. Why doesn't my daughter have an offer? It's like 7:01. I'm sending 900 emails out. Hang tight for a minute. But that's neither here nor there.
Such a
But
big business. Such a big business.
It
It's
is,
crazy.
yeah.
It's crazy that it's so technical like that, like waiting for an offer from a club that you tried out for. And again, like goes back to what, we were saying, good for you that you did it. It's really big business. It's a great sport. It's a great, culture of volleyball, but it's part of it. Club
Yep.
volleyball is part of it. And
Now,
wanting to be for a good club, it matters. It matters to have good coaches. It matters to have good administrators. It pays to be at a club, which I do want to touch upon sometime in a moment here, of how you get kids recruited, because that's one of the biggest things to anyone. If I was going to pay $10,000 or whatever, 5, 12, 15, 20 for my kid to play sports, and that was one of the possibilities, I'd like to understand what the possibility would be.
sure. So
yeah.
I want to touch on, you asked how we explain that when parents ask us about the cost. So the cost that we incur, that we have to work into all these tuitions. You got gym time, tournament registration, coaches clearances and registrations, which are usually up to $160 a coach, travel expenses, hotels, and plane or gas, uniforms, nets, antennas, balls, which I think there was a year where nobody bought more volleyballs than our club whenever we expanded. We bought something like 1,500 volleyballs or something at once. Strength training, insurance with general liability and workers' comp, all that, taxes, and then you got the normal expenses, your website costs, all that. So when you lay that out to a parent and then you say, okay, that same parent 3 months from now is going to, may call me and say, well, my coach doesn't know anything. Well, that's the other thing. We need to get good coaches. The only way you're going to get good coaches is if you pay them well. So you need to pay them to make it worth your time, worth their time. The other thing you heard, worked my way up, put thousands and thousands of hours in. I have coaches come to me and say, I'd really like to just do this full time and not have to work this career that I hate and then come here. I'd rather come here fresh, and there is an avenue for that. You know what I mean? If you find the right club, if the clubs are doing it right, there should be an avenue that those coaches are getting taken care of. We have the highest we hold the most coaches of any club around here because we pay them well. We make sure they're taken care of when they're at tournaments. If I'm at a tournament, I'll take all the coaches out for dinner, drinks, whatever. But you got to I like to give the coaches a pathway to get to a point where they can make this a career if they want. Now,
Nice.
they're going to come to me and ask me, well, what do I have to do? And I'm going to tell them, how many hours have you put in the gym? How many clinics have you picked up and come and covered for us? How many coaches have you covered who are sick? How many lessons are you doing? And well, I don't know where to get the lessons. Okay, ask me. I'll give you some lessons, and then you got to start building it off of there. A lot of coaches, once they hear that, aren't as eager, but there needs to be a route for the coaches that do want to put that work in and do want to get to a point where their craft is strong, they have the knowledge, they have the ability to train, and their work ethic shows it. That's our biggest thing with the cost. What I say to parents is our biggest asset is our coaches and our staff, and we want to make sure they're taken care of. We want to make sure they worth them leaving at home, leaving their husband, their wife, and their kids at home for a couple hours 2, 3 times a week to come coach after they had worked all day.
Do you give them extra opportunity to do like private lessons, or
Yeah,
is gym
absolutely.
space available for that? Do they have
Yep.
to pay, or do they have to rent the gym to do that? How does all that work
So that's the
to
other
make extra
benefit.
money?
Yeah, that's the other benefit of us with those long-term leases. So we have those courts 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So if you coach with us, you're getting like more than I want to say you're paying 30% of what you're paying, less than half of what normal, renter would be paying for that court. So yeah, you have plenty of opportunity, and we push them to do that. Not all of them take advantage, but there's plenty of people that want lessons, get in the gym and give lessons. You know what I mean? And
It's
especially in the off season when there's a ton of gym time to be had.
I have spent thousands, and I mean thousands and thousands of dollars for my children to get better with private lessons and different kinds of lessons. And for them, it both worked out. And they wanted it. They wanted to. So that's why my wife and I did it. But you're right. You know, listen, there's so many kids out there that are hungry, not just to get a scholarship, but are hungry to get better and are falling in love with the game like you did, Dave, like we all did. They might be a little younger now because, you know, we didn't play the game at such a young age. But, you know, like I said, I was at 13s and 14s today in Momentous here in Irvine, big tournament going on, some of the big clubs, and just watching the joy, the cheering. It was girls club, and it was fun to be back in it, but it's so everyone's thirsty to just keep playing and thirsty to get better and find more places to play. And I need to get better as a setter, or I need to work on my serve, or I need to work on my passing, or whatever it is. To have coaches, which again, let me also say it's music to my ears that you put that first, because that's the biggest thing I have with all the sports at every level is coaching. Now, it's one thing if you're T-ball and your dad's volunteering and he doesn't know anything about baseball, can't get mad at that. But when you're paying someone, especially in club, and I don't care if you're paying them from 8 on, if it's 8-year-old club, I don't care if it's whatever sport it is, you expect those coaches to coach and teach and know the game. And that doesn't mean they're great, they're ready to go coaching for a national championship, but like if you're spending the money for that, kudos to you. No wonder your club's growing, because that's the most important thing, is about getting better. If I'm going to pay money to you, I don't care what the cost is, I want my kid to get better.
Hey,
Absolutely.
Dave, does Renaissance do master coaching program, or does each coach get to do their own thing? Because there's, different philosophies from
Yeah, so we
different
do.
clubs, right?
I hired Tracy, like we've always been where we have a lead coach and we follow our coach. We have a coaching manual that has 1 million drills in it. And actually, like Tracy just rewrote one when she first got here last year. But yeah, she's at every practice. She coordinates all the coaches for that practice, has the plan, runs the practice, and the coaches follow her lead. So we do all speak the same language. So there's
Okay.
100 ways you can say one thing, but when you're coaching a 10-year-old kid and they hear, take the ball baseline from one coach, and then the other coach, get your platform out away from your body and drop your shoulder. Like, it may be the same thing they're saying, but if they're saying it with different verbiage, the kid's going to be totally confused, especially at the
Yeah, 'cause
younger ages.
Sure.
Yeah, I've been at some clubs that they're just willy-nilly, and if it's your team, it's your team, right? But the problem is you go from 14s with one club coach that talks this language, and you go to the 15s the next year and it's totally different, but it's the same club. I always thought that was a huge challenge. We did that as well. Everybody had the same language. This is what we're going to talk about. It was just so smoother as the girls went up, and I thought the development was a lot faster.
Yeah, we run a coaches clinic at the beginning of the year that we show a lot of the core drills, you know what I mean, and how you're gonna explain it and whatnot. And it's an open forum too, where if a coach has a good idea in the middle of the season and it's like they're not picking it up this way, can we look at it? You know what I mean? Tracy, myself, the coach will come up with a way to get through to those kids and make the adjustments. So
that's great.
To make you human here, I'd love to hear a PG-13 bear story, a story of you and Bear somewhere. Like,
all right,
Okay.
how about when we took him up in the hot air balloon?
oh yes,
Okay,
let's hear. We'd love to hear
this, but we didn't hear the
let's go. Let's
details.
tell.
I was on the ground. My dad was flying.
Well,
Bear.
can we back it up just
Yeah.
a second? Like how you even talked me into doing this? Okay, so we were out the night before. Of
Let's
course,
see, where
had
are you?
maybe
Are you
a
in
drink
This
or
is-
two.
Where were we at? Were we at Chris's house?
I don't remember exactly where we were at, but we were with Chris's wife, because you talked both of us into it.
Right.
Chris didn't
So
wanna
you were
do it.
having a drink or 9.
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
Got it.
Okay.
Got it.
All right.
And,
set the stage.
Yeah, so he's like, hey, why don't you come out and go in our hot air balloon in the morning? And at the time, I'm like, that's a great idea. I'd love to do that, because I've always wanted to go in a hot air balloon. So early the next morning at dawn, right, we're in this parking lot.
It's probably
And then
dark
go ahead,
before-
Dave, and I can jump in whenever. But
Yeah, so we get there.
It's a way different experience than I thought it was going to be.
Tim's like, we'll meet you. What time? I'm like, the sunrise. So this was in August, I think. So it would have been like 6 o'clock. So they show up, which I was somewhat surprised with.
It was about a half hour from where we were staying.
Which is 3 a.m. Pacific Standard,
Yeah.
by the way.
Well,
so.
he had been.
And I think I went to bed around 3 a.m. that night. But
I'm sure you did, Bear.
Yep. And so we get there, we go get everything set up, and he got in. I
So
think he
yeah.
started second guessing himself once the balloon
Well,
stood up.
here's the thing. Okay, so it's at this parking lot in a shopping center. First of all, I thought we'd be in a field or whatever. And anytime I thought about being in a hot air balloon, I thought you just kind of go straight up in the air, hover around a little bit, and come straight down. Nothing like that at all, right?
Wait,
So
did we
the
take off
balloon,
from Walmart?
yeah, it was like
Yeah,
Walmart
yeah, yeah,
parking
yeah.
lot. There's
Yep.
there's telephone wires everywhere. There's trees. There's everything, right? And so the balloon is like half full when we get there, laying on the ground. And the first time like they hit the fire thing to like fill it up, it just scares the heck out of me. It is so loud. It is ridiculous,
This is amazing.
right? That's what you hear. And so the thing finally gets upright, erect, or whatever you want to call it. And we step into this little basket, okay? And it's Dave's dad and
Wicker
Chris's wife,
basket,
Lorraine.
just like what you think. It's a wicker
Yeah,
basket.
Yeah.
wicker basket. Yeah.
And like this wicker basket, and you got about eight huge canisters of helium or whatever it is
There's
in there with you too.
four 10
of
gallon.
them.
No,
Okay.
it's 320 gallons. Either way,
And
or 15
I
gallons.
think the basket goes up to like maybe a little higher than my butt, so I feel like I'm going to fall out the whole time.
I'd have been sitting, but yeah,
Yeah.
I'd have been scared to death already.
Yeah.
On your knees.
So I'm like, what did I get myself into? You know, and my head hurts from the night before as it is.
So yeah, they
And
take
so I go,
off.
okay, we're going to go up.
You take
What's that?
off. This is the one when the police showed up.
Yeah, we got chased by the cops. We'll tell you about that too. But
Go ahead.
so we go up a little ways, and your dad is a little bit, how do I describe him? Maybe like Doc on Back to the Future a little bit, maybe. I mean, kind of just, he's thinking about a lot of different things, you know. I mean, he has different businesses, whatever. And he's like, hey, just to let you know, like if you see a tree in the way or some power lines, just let me know, because I don't see everything up here. And I'm like, what? What is going on here? I thought this guy was the pro, right? And so we go up, I don't know, half a mile high, and Dave's following us in the truck, and he's like, hey, I want to go over to this, I think was it Chevy? Or
Yeah,
was
it
Ford?
was Tom Henry Chevrolet, which is where I said I worked.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was when you brought that up earlier. And we were going to go say hi to his friend, right? So,
Yeah,
we hover over a couple miles, and we start dropping down, and they're like talking, we're waving at each other, and then a cop pulls up. And the guy's like ordering us to come down, and his dad just hits the fire thing, and we float away, right? And the cop's chasing us.
I
What's
start
that?
arguing with the cop.
It's like the Wizard of
said to the
Oz.
cop,
Yeah,
I'm like,
right.
because the cop, these guys, a lot of them don't know when you're an aircraft. They don't have, like, they're not our police. The FAA is. So when they're in the sky, like, we know what the FAA, nobody knows what the rules to the balloon are other than like us and the FAA. So if you're over a street, a busy highway, you have to be 1,000 feet above the ground. But if you're coming in for a landing, you can be as high, you can be 5 feet over the ground. So all you have to say is, I'm landing in that field. So anyhow, my dad said, oh, just don't talk to him. Leave. So I drive down the road, and he's following me for a while.
The police officer is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's following
Yeah,
my
yeah.
car. Like he's gonna. Long story short, we made a right,
ditched
went
him.
away, and he disappeared.
Yeah, we ditched him in the balloon, so the cop's not chasing us anymore. And the thing is, I don't know if you
Chasing bear. I just feel like this is probably the only time that's ever happened.
Dude,
the only
that's
time I got
so
away.
rare. So
Yeah,
It's
Yeah.
the only time we got away, he said.
the crazy thing about being in a hot air balloon too, it's not like you go up high, okay, and then it starts dropping. This thing starts falling fast, okay? And when they put the fire on, okay,
Yeah, there you go. Right.
it's not like pushing the accelerator on a car. Like you don't get the instant and you
Takes a
just don't
second.
go. You still fall for another 1,000 feet or whatever it is before the thing catches up, and then you kind of glide back up again, right? And there was a couple times, like his dad likes to go down and see how close he could get to the top of trees.
Well, you
And,
gotta
like,
you gotta pick the leaves off the top of trees. Then
that
you
yeah.
never have those leaves. You're always getting the
We're-
leaves on the bottom of the tree. So why
we're
not get the
hitting
leaves on
we're
the
hitting
top?
tops of trees, okay? And I'm white knuckling it the whole time. The whole time I am scared. Like, and I thought this was going to be a nice little thing. Maybe we go up, have a little glass of champagne
Yeah.
or something like that, right? And it's the whole time. And I'm like, okay, so like, where are we landing? And he's like, I don't know. I'm like,
Yeah.
what do you mean you don't know? You know, well, where are we going to land? And he goes, oh, we'll find a place. Hopefully there's no dogs when we land. Because we were like over farmland, basically. And these homes had like 2 acre yards, right? So there's places. And by the time we finally came down, he's like, okay, so I want you to brace yourself when we land. Because sometimes we fall over.
Yeah. Fall over. Yeah.
So bend your knees, bend your knees, and be ready to tip. And I'm like, what am I doing? This is ridiculous.
You're like, I never tip. You just set the pipe. You don't tip.
right.
You set the pipe, and you
hang it.
subscribe at the
You hit
same
the thing.
time. Yes.
Right. So we landed in some lady's yard, 10 miles away from where we started. Okay. And we didn't tip over. And I think your dad and you knew the lady, actually.
Yeah.
They didn't have dogs.
It was like my neighbor growing up. It was their house. Like they moved and that was their house.
Wow.
With balloons, you can't control anything other than up and down. So you go wherever
Yeah.
the wind takes you. So you
Right.
land wherever you find a spot.
It was an amazing experience, but I thought it was going to be a little more calmer, a little more.
That was the one
Romanticized in your head is what happened, Tim.
And
that was, but
it
wasn't
scared
that
the living
morning
daylights out of me.
Wasn't that the morning that they also didn't they think that we crashed?
Yeah. Okay. So here's another thing. I was staying at my friend Chris Chiliano. He's my assistant coach, right? I was staying at his house, and he didn't want to go. He wanted nothing to do with this. But I went with his wife Lorraine, and on the radio, he heard on the radio that there was a balloon accident that
Allison
morning
Park or
somewhere in
out there.
Pennsylvania, and there was like casualties, and he thought for sure it was us.
No, it was. They didn't say there were casualties. They said it was a balloon crash, and it was. This happens a lot more than you'd think, but it usually doesn't make it on the news. Like anytime you land, you're landing in a place where people don't think you should be landing. So they call the cops or the ambulance and so they did that, and
Something
it got
happened,
on
yeah.
to KDKA, the TV news, the radio station, before we even knew it. And so we were driving and we heard the same thing, and my dad had to like call into to somebody and be like, nobody crashed, everybody's fine, everybody's in the car, the balloon's in the back of the trailer, but Lorraine's husband heard that on the news and thought that they were all dead.
Yeah, thought we were goners.
Well, that's a hell of a story. I mean, we asked for stories to be
PG,
told.
isn't it?
It is. It's very PG-13. I mean, I'm sure there was things going on maybe up in the basket that we don't want to talk about. But
it was all good. We had bottled water. That's all we had up there. But
it's probably all you needed after the night before, Bear.
Yeah, I was rehydrating for sure.
Oh, for sure.
So go back to volleyball here, Dave. Quick question for you. You got a bunch of teams right now. Volleyball's right in the middle of it in juniors. People are qualifying. Some have gotten bids. There's only a few left. Where's your top teams ranked right now in the country, and how's it looking for you guys heading into the summer?
Our 16s just got a bid today. Our 8s got a bid a couple months
Congrats.
ago. Thank you. We have another couple qualifiers to go to. That's the other thing now. I know if you guys know girls volleyball, you used to, like, if you didn't qualify, a lot of people would send their teams to AUs. Now there's so many teams that AUs fill up right when they open, and then so now you're in a point where either you qualify or you have to find a way to finagle into AUs. So luckily,
do they not have another tournament like Festival? They used to have that when we were kids. It was like JOs and then Festival.
There's a few up and coming, but nothing crazy. There's a division that's Patriot Division in USAV that you don't have to qualify for, that you can just sign up for. But
so two questions to.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Keep
no,
going.
You're good. Go for it.
I was going to ask two, and this is again me being the guy that likes to argue. One is so say you're 16. Well, you already said you're 16-1. So let's just say your 16-4s don't qualify. When's the last tournament before JOs, an extra festival, or AAU?
Sure.
When would they be done?
So our 1s and 2s teams all go till the end of April with the regular season.
Okay.
And then anything below the whites and grays are done which are regional teams, are done mid-April. So they start like second week of January as far as tournaments go. Start practice December 1, start tournaments second weekend of January, usually play 8 tournaments or so, and are done mid-April. And a lot of that with us is there's a big tournament in Pittsburgh called East Coast Championships. It's on Memorial Day weekend, but there's like not a lot of anything else in May. So the weather also finally starts breaking. Like, we haven't seen the sun here in 6 months. So once the sun comes out, people are like, okay, yeah, we can go do something else rather than stand in a gym. You know what I mean? So that's the sweet spot we found, is like mid-April for the regional teams especially, and then regular season for the teams going to nationals is end of April. We usually give them 2 weeks off, and then we'll go to Summerfest in Columbus before we go to either AAUs or USAV.
And then you can qualify at regionals. Do you have regionals that you can qualify at as well?
Well, that was where our 16s did today. So that was
Okay,
like
that's what I was wondering.
KRBA. Yeah. So that was one of them was today. So that was
Now you've had some big alumni come through
Yeah,
there. I
yeah.
mean,
we
that's
do.
some big names you guys got on your website. Even from like we've been bringing up D3. We've got Dave Tinley on the East Coast, and Juniata gets brought up, and
Yeah.
what success they've had. But you had Penn State, Pitt. I mean, that I know that's Pitt's right up the road, and with Fisher there, but that's a pretty long list.
Yeah.
So you
No,
want to talk about your alum a little bit?
our list is no joke. You had Krista Harmato Dietzen, who played here, obviously was the Olympic captain, along the way. And then the Penn State runs, there were a whole slew of girls that
Yeah.
won when Penn State had they just won again, but you know what I mean? When they had their
Yeah, when Russ
Russ
was
had
still there, right?
had his 4 in a row.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have, the alumni list is on that site, and there's just a whole slew of kids. And the nice thing is a lot of brought recruiting up, brought D3 up a little bit. You got most recently, we have a kid who never was, she always wanted she wanted to play in school. She was a heck of a player, was an undersized middle when she started, then moved to the outside. Biggest competitor I've ever been around. Kennedy Christie's her name. She plays at Juniata. She's just graduating grad school there, but she's won 3 straight national championships there
Good for her.
currently. And
Big
Awesome.
deal.
he was the most outstanding player from the Elite Eight on this year. Just an absolute stud. And funny story about her. So I coached her teams for the most part, especially the last few years. She was the COVID year, so she graduated in 2020. So she's told me whenever she decided she's going to Juniata, she's like, well, I'm just going to be a libero. I'm just going to pass there. I'm like, no, you're not. Like, you're going to be an
She's gonna
attacker.
bang on the
Like,
outside.
you've got an arm and you're going to, yeah, but I'm not big enough. I'm like, okay. And so after she won each of her national championships, I'd send her a text, be like, "Yeah, I'm never going to be an outside hitter." And this year especially, she just absolutely dominated in the final. But absolute stud, and never was. She knew she found Juniata. There was a major there she liked. It was the right size for her. It was a great fit. She went
Good
and
fit.
yeah,
Yeah.
and the coaching staff's been there forever. It's Mark Pavlik's wife, Heather, is the head coach there. Um,
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah, and she's been there forever. So it's right down the street from Penn State. The staff's great. We've sent them quite a few kids. And the program's just on another level.
Did Juniata setter come from Indiana? Lloyd Ball's club, Pineapple?
But yeah, I think you're right.
Olivia, I think her name was. Stud.
Yeah. And she was a stud. Yeah. For
Yeah,
sure.
awesome. Wow, good connections for us, guys.
What you said, Dave, and Sully kind of echoed it. Not the exact words you said. You said great. Sully said good, but you both said fit. And we've had guests on the show from college coaches, and obviously we've talked about our children and stuff. And I think that's another thing that I'm applaud you for doing for your club is putting people in the right position. If they're good enough to play college, not everyone is, right? At whatever level, I don't care what it is. Some can do it, some can't. But the ones that you're coaching and you're training and you're trying to get there is like aspirations are important, dreams are important, but playing where you belong and a chance to have such a great experience in that journey. It's over so fast. I'm watching March Madness. My kid played March Madness in the Final Four like 5 years ago. Like it was so long ago and it's over.
Mm-hmm.
And so like your experience is over so quick and you will remember it, as all three of us do, because we still talk to each other from those experiences for the rest of your life, and putting them in the right fit is important. So it's amazing she won 3 national championships, but to be such a powerhouse, and probably my guess is she's going to look back on her years to come as some of the best times of her life, not just because she won, but she had sounds like an amazing experience being there with friends in college. So, good job. And again, if parents are listening to Dave, who runs one of the most successful clubs out in Pennsylvania and on the East Coast, is find your daughter or son the right fit. It doesn't have to be Division I. It could be Division I, right? It could be Division III, could be JC, could be Division II, could be NAIA. Just find the right fit where your daughter or son can have a great experience.
Make sure that school has the things you want. That's the biggest thing. You get a lot of kids, I want to play D1, I want to play D1. And that's the only thing. They also don't see D1. You're not a student athlete. You're an athlete student. Let's be honest. At this point, it's a full-time job.
It's a job.
You're, especially in volleyball, you're not at the football game ever. You know what I mean? You're either on the road or you're playing. you're not able to go out on the weekends because you have matches the next day. So you're missing, if that's important to you, you're missing the whole social aspect, at least in that realm. Now, there's obviously, like you guys said, you guys have known each other forever through that. So you build your own relationships, but you need to know what that involves. You need to know how much work that takes. And if it's a good fit somewhere, but it's not Division 1 or as big of a school as you want, that shouldn't matter. If a good fit's a good fit, and you're going to be more successful if you're somewhere that is a good fit for you rather than you creating the fit, trying to force yourself into somewhere that isn't the best fit, I guess.
Yeah.
Hey,
Well
hey,
said.
Dave, can I go something about not about volleyball and what a stud you are outside of volleyball?
Go for
Can I
it.
bring that up just a little bit?
Yeah,
Go
bring that
for
up,
it.
So
man.
one of the times he stayed at my place was he was out in Huntington Beach. I think it's Super Bowl weekend
It
or
was
Super
when
Bowl Sunday.
when is it when were the Niners in it?
I think the Niners
It
were and they
was that, you
lost
know what
because I'm
that
a
what
Niners fan.
you know what day
Me
that
too.
was? That was the day that was the night before or the day of, you went on
No, I
a
think
date with
I
Judy,
went
that
on a
for
date
your
with
first
Judy,
date.
my current wife, the night before. No, I
Never
think that
turned
day.
back.
Yeah. But anyways, my point is this: this guy's a stud. Okay, he runs marathons. He runs
As an
marathons,
Ironman.
and he was out for the Huntington Beach Marathon, and then
That is Super Bowl because Mooney used to do the half marathon there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
that
Super Bowl
And
Surf
Sunday.
City.
I kind of want to go into just a little bit of how many marathons, because I know you've run the Boston Marathon. You had an accident not too long ago, I think, training for the Ironman, or
It
you were
was in the
competing for the
race.
Ironman,
Yeah.
but you did qualify, right? So can
Right.
you go into that just a little bit?
Sure.
I'd like to hear just a little bit
Yeah,
of that.
so I've always been a runner. I've that's just like my calm, you know what I mean? I run all the time. And like Tim said, I did marathons. I've done Pittsburgh, I've done Boston 2 or 3 times. I did Berlin, I did Huntington Beach, Erie, Columbus twice.
No
Um,
LA?
I haven't. LA's too hot for me.
Yeah.
I'm a
Thin, thin skin.
yeah, heat does not work well with me when I'm racing. But funny, I always did that. I knew I wanted to do an Ironman. I grew up and would see the races when I was young. I remember I was like 6 years
Yeah.
old and
Yeah, they're
watched
so gnarly.
Kona.
NBC. Yeah, and would watch the NBC, and I remember watching it with my mom and talking about how I was going to do that. Funny, 2 years ago, I think one of my best friends, I'm at his house every day. His wife cooks for us all the time. He goes, you know what? You look pretty fat for a runner. And I was like, all right, let's go.
It's on.
So he said that, and from that point, like slimmed up. I wasn't fat, but I was heavier than I needed to be for a runner. And then decided last January I was gonna do an Ironman in September. So I started training in January, hired a coach.
A full Ironman or like an Olympic or what? The whole.
I go all in, baby, full Ironman.
Wow.
Go big or go home, man.
So my buddy was a pro at the Olympic distance, so which is shorter. So
Right.
I asked
My
him
wife's
about
done a
it.
couple of those.
Olympic or sprint, right?
Yeah,
Olympic
right.
sprint, full.
Olympics a little bit longer than the sprint, and then it goes like half and whatnot. So my buddy gives me his coach's name, Scott Cheney, who's out of LA, stud. Anybody that needs a triathlon coach, Scott Cheney, shout out. So called him January, and it was funny. He's like, he kind of was like feeling me out. He's like, you want to get off the couch and do a Ironman? And I'm like, no, I've been running. He's like, okay, what are your times? So I give him some times. Okay, you'll be fine. So I hadn't swam laps in like 20 years. And I started January, bought a bike, then I did a half, and part of the training was doing a half marathon. I did Sandusky, and I was hoping to finish under 5 hours. And I ended up finishing in 4:35, and my half marathon was like 1:26. So I was in it, like, and I was so I knew I was where I needed to be. So the race was in September. Going to the race, I get through the swim pretty quick. Then I'm on the bike. I'm on mile 80. I'm on mile 80 of the bike, and
Oh, you're almost there.
so it's 112. So I got 30.
12.
I
Yeah.
was on 82, and I have Aero bars. So like so I'm in Aero, and I'm
skinny.
eating a gel, and I have to put you can't drop the pit, you have to keep it, or they penalize you. So I go to put it in my shirt or whatever, and I hit a rut, and I was going 25 miles an hour and bounced my head off the ground. And I got up, and like my one eye was looking up here, the other one was looking down here. and I'm trying to put the chain back on my bike. I get it on. I finished that 30 miles and I started to run the marathon and I didn't feel it, but I had like 2 broken ribs back in the back. And I couldn't once I ran 2 miles and I was just like, okay, if I cut it now, I can probably get one in by the end of the year. So I cut it, jumped back in the training mode, went to Phoenix and did Tempe in November. Ended up doing it in 10 hours and 30 minutes and qualified for the World Championship. So unfortunately,
Wow.
it's not in Kona. They alternate now between the men are in Kona 1 year and the women are in Nice, and then they flip. So I'll be in Nice,
Nice.
but
That's
bummer.
tough.
it's the
I was
same
going to
race.
say, shitty. You got to go to Nice.
Dude,
What a
really?
bummer.
Well,
And then
but
the following
Kona
year,
was
you're going to go
always
back to
the
Kona.
Kona.
Yeah.
You know
When
what I
is
mean?
that though? When are you going to Nice?
September 14th is the race. So
Will you, just based off your dreams and everything, will you still train, you think, one more year if you get through this to go so you can do
I
Kona?
tell myself I don't know, but everybody around me is like, yeah, right. You're not going to stop.
Of course you're not. I mean, we're all athletes, and I look at you because you're him, and I am just marveled at the discipline, the effort to train. You're not just training 1, you're training 3, and then the wherewithal in your spirit to compete and find a way to make it. My wife's 39. She does right before she's 40. She does a bucket list. She's like, I want to become a I was gonna say decathlon. Like she wants to try it. So she does the Olympic one. She couldn't swim, so she had to go get lessons. I mean, she could swim, but I mean, like, scared to do that. Got a bike and all that stuff, and she did them, and she did 2 of them, and I was just like, watching her do it, but then listening to your story, I can just see, because I grew up like you did, watching it, and you're watching people fall over the line, and some do it, and just, I know when I'm out at the gym and I'm on my 3rd set and I'm ready to just call it a day, to think that, like you just said, you just biked 112 miles, you just swam 2.1, and then you got to run a marathon. Right, you just got to get off all that and run a marathon. Is like, I couldn't even walk a marathon, let alone run it.
Right.
And then to think that's what you're doing after you did those other 2 things. Incredible. I'm glad you said that, Bear.
Yeah.
Dave, you're more than just a club director, and that's probably why, like, listening to you, we've never met, and that's, again, another cool thing for me to be on this show is your passion comes through your voice. What you're doing for your club is probably the way you attack these trainings for yourself, is you want to be the best version of yourself, and you're trying to make your business the best business, obviously, for 2 reasons. One is obviously financial. That's why people start businesses. But 2 is to create a culture and an atmosphere for young kids to just follow their dreams. So awesome.
Yeah,
I trained with Dave one day.
Yeah.
He was in Huntington, and I was on my dad's bike. It's a 3-speed, right?
Did you say one day or for 1 minute?
This is for about 5 minutes.
Okay.
But we were going north on the boardwalk, or not the boardwalk, but the path at the beach in Huntington. And we were keeping up, it was fine. The wind was to our back, and I was just kind of pacing with him. And then we decided he wanted to run back towards the pier, go south, right? And then it was against the wind, and I couldn't keep up with him on my dad's bike. And I'm pedaling, and he's giving me crap, and he like basically beat me back to the pier. And I'm
he's
on a
running.
freaking bike,
And he's
I couldn't
running.
keep up with him, and he was running.
Did
He
you hear
still gives
Bob
me
in the
crap
background
about
going,
that.
against the wind? Okay, so.
But he is a stud for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah, Coley, that's funny. My wife did the same thing. So I was a swimmer when I was younger. So swimming wouldn't be a problem. Bike wouldn't be a problem. The running, on the other hand, dude, we're Clydesdales. Like when I was trying to do a triathlon myself, I got up to 3 miles. I was so excited that I got to 3 miles. I'm like, wait a minute, how much more do I have to go? Like, you out of your mind? Yeah, so
she could do the bike
stud.
forever. She could do the bike forever. Mooney could. The biking's easy for her, but that's like you, like Dave. You can run forever, probably, right? Like if you were just to go out there, marathons a lot, but not for you. You've been running your whole life, but for some it is. And like for you, Sully, you said you swam. Like I swim, but like if someone told me I had to go swim 2.1 miles with a ton of people kicking my face and punching me in the way to try to get there, I don't know if I'd be able to do it.
Lisa was like Mooney. I mean, she was flailing in a pool. I'm like, okay, you're going nowhere and you're going super fast, so it's not working for you. But she took lessons too. She did the same thing Mooney did, and the running wasn't a big deal for her, and then the bike wasn't easy. But there was a swimming that was tougher for me. It'd be totally opposite. I mean, there's no trying to do a marathon. I mean, that's a lot of brain work, Dave. You just killed it. You just killed it, man. Good for you.
Thank you.
We might. I was thinking, I'm not sure who your sponsor is for that, but if they want to sponsor Set the Pipe, we can come over in Nice and
There
no
you go.
problem and follow you around.
Let's
And
do it.
we can definitely do some interviews about your club
We do a
while
pod
we're
right there.
right there in Nice,
Let's
know.
go.
Get Bear,
Do you
get on
have
his
a sponsor for
3
your club?
speed to go next to you.
What's
And he'll
that?
just hold out the microphone for you while he's going on his 3-speed. I'm talking motorcycle, by the way,
Yeah.
Bear,
There you
so you
go.
can keep
Electric
up with him.
bike. I think I could beat him with my electric bike. But
Probably not.
do you have a sponsor for your club? Anything?
So our big thing is I've found over the years, especially with like the biggest thing that you're going to deal with on an outside vendor level is uniforms, right? And if any of you have had anything to do with club volleyball, you get 7,000 calls from people who think they can do uniforms. And you can tell them, okay, here, it's June. This is how many uniforms we're going to need. You can give them all the sizes by September, and they will screw it up. A couple years ago, Lexi's son called me. Her and her dad own Ren Athletics. Her dad owns Ren Athletics, and she's does the sales for them, and talked us into letting them come into town and talk to us. Since then, they've knocked it out of the park. Their products are on another level. And it's more than that as far as our relationship with them is they're great people. We got to know Conrad super well, got to know Lexi super well. Their team came into town, you know what I mean, a couple times, and we've gone and seen their facility down in Dallas. Great people, and they're volleyball people. So it's all volleyball, like it's volleyball uniforms only at this point. I think they're going to get into some flag football, but they know what they're doing. Everything was delivered on time, early. They can get us
The
stuff
girls
within a day or
love the
two.
uniforms.
Yeah, the uniform quality is way higher than anything we've had, and you can call them and they know what they're talking about. They know volleyball. They talk volleyball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we're tight with them. We're working on some projects with them, and that's our big thing. Like people, like I have Tracy and Laura, who are great people. We have them on board who we talk to as much as anybody because we have so many people we're outfitting that's an essential part of that relationship and an essential part of how our operations have gotten to where they've gotten to and how we are able to handle the volume we are able to handle. Because we also have like short season teams that you don't see on the teams that are listed here. So we give those kids that don't want to do club or can't do club because they're in another sport a chance to do a abbreviated season and whatnot, and they outfit all those teams as well, which are short notice and quick turnaround.
It's
See,
Lex.
you
it's
see
Lexi,
right there.
It's Lexi and her dad.
Yeah, Conrad.
What's the
Ren Athletic?
Ren?
Yeah, RENATH is the logo.
It's funny because we've been talking about, and we're going to do it this spring or summer. We're gonna do basically a like parent athlete series of just somebody that's either a professional athlete or have gone through recruiting way back in the day. Now they have a kid in the Division I.
There
To
you go.
have Lexi's a stud, right? And then to have those two go in business together for the most part.
She
Man,
was
I'll
so
tell
good
you
in
what,
high
Dave,
school.
if you can do us a solid and help us get those two on here, I
For
think
sure.
it's something that us three probably need to talk about.
Yeah, for sure.
Well,
we
no, I
will
mean
get them on there for sure.
it's part of it all, and like having gear and having someone that you can trust and all of that stuff. You run a big club, and it's not like, hey, we're just getting a few unis for someone. And the other thing, the reason why I interrupted, which is nothing new for me, is something you said that I think is awesome. And this goes, listen, you coach a club, we all did it. I have two boys that played, and they were super focused on basketball, and that's all they did. And I get it, and that's part of it. But you also said like you have teams that are, what'd you call them? Not full season, but half season, or quarter season.
Short season teams. Yeah.
Short season teams for kids that play other sports. So like you can still play volleyball. So again, for all the parents out there that are like, oh, my kid can't play volleyball anymore. Yes, they can. Find a club that seems to care about your child and gives them an opportunity to continue to play the game. Not everyone has to be an Olympic gold medalist to play high school volleyball. Not every person that plays at 14 through 15 through 17 is going to play college volleyball. It's a fun game. Play it. Like it used to be just played at the rec centers or at your school and everyone played. Like if you're a college a basketball player or you're whatever the sport is and softball player and you still want to play volleyball, go play on one of his teams. Go out and play. Go out and have fun. Right. And have that short season and play with your friends and still be able to play volleyball. It's such a great game. I'm glad you do that because I say that to a lot of parents that are younger, people that ask my wife and I, because we played volleyball. Hey, what should I do? I'm like, how old's your daughter? Oh, like go to, I give them 3 or 4 different clubs and it's like, go to find out where their clinics are, go to one on a weekend. You don't have to go pay this money and spend 3 days a week and 2 days a week in the gym every week until you're ready for it. And you may never be ready for it, right? Like, but give those experiences so they can still see the game and still love the game and still play it, right?
Yeah,
and be able to play it. So
we offer
awesome.
that. We offer the short season. We have Learn to Play, which we have every Friday at one of our locations, and then every Sunday at another location. And then we have some volley taught stuff we do in the summers. So we're growing that programming aspect. But I played 3 sports every year in high school, and that's one thing that I think is that's what makes the best athletes, is athletes that are well-rounded and have different skill sets. And we try to allow even our club team kids that have other sports, we're as flexible as we can be. Obviously, we can't let them not be there all the time, but we work with them and their schedules to try to allow that, because that's where the best athletes come from. I mean, and we all know that the best athletes played more than one sport, and when it wasn't that sports season, they were playing something else. So they don't get injured as much either. You know what I mean? There's way more injuries because of the specialization now.
Well, if you do the same movement, I said this this was a while ago, a bunch of NBA guys are tearing their Achilles, and I was like, what's that? You know, why? I'm like, everyone didn't just do the one step to the left, step back, shoot it. Like, they didn't do that 1,000 times for 15 years in a row. They didn't do that. They were playing at the park. They were growing up. They were playing other sports. And yeah, they could do that and they worked it. But that same movement, years later is just going to finally tear down. Right. And so I agree with you. I mean, I'm a culprit of it, because I just told my son yesterday, I'm like, you're playing in your senior year. I said, you pick any sport, like, you're going to play something else besides basketball. You're going to go play college basketball. You know you are. Go do something. I don't care what it is. Play volleyball in the spring, run track in the spring, do one of them. Just do it so you did it and have fun in high school. So I'm glad you promote that. I hope more coaches turn back around from how it used to be, and it'll never go back, and that's okay. It's the way the sports world we live in. But I wish it would just shade back a little bit that way, where we promote and are excited for kids playing multiple sports, not tearing them down and making them play one.
Sure. Yeah. Hey, Dave Neely, it has been over an hour. Sure has been a pleasure. Man, we'd love to know what's going on with Nice. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
But Dave Neely, Renaissance Volleyball Club at Green Tree Sportsplex in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It was a pleasure, brother. Thanks for coming on Set the Pipe.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Talk soon.
You were awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you, Dave.
And good luck at Nice.
Great seeing you.
Crush it.
For sure.